They met for dinner. Back to the beginning. They all agreed to meet for dinner at the same restaurant where they'd first met. They ordered enough food to keep them at the table for a few hours, and soon they were talking about the different restaurants and bars they'd been to. "I guess I'll never forget the food and drink in Barcelona," Tomek said. "But maybe that's because I went there on my first important journey." "Oh," Martine exclaimed. "Is this the beginning of a story? I bet it is." He made a funny gesture, as though he was surprised it was his turn already. "What I'm about to tell you might seem like a love story, but it isn't. Well, not a conventional one, at least. It started and ended in Barcelona." It's not a love story. Look in her eyes. June 17th, 11:45 p.m., Barcelona. "So tell me, why are you afraid of traveling?" She looked at me over her drink, a playful challenge in her eyes. "It's not fear," I smiled back. "I just worked too much to even think about booking a ticket." And it was true. The only reason I'd end up in Barcelona was a conference. The whole trip was planned and paid for by the company. "And yet traveling suits you," she laughed. Under the table, her foot touched my calf. "Obviously." "Traveling suits you too," I said with a smile. She smiled back. "Come here for a second." She took out her ridiculous Polaroid camera and took a picture of us. "I'm having such a good time." And she was. I couldn't take my eyes off her. I'd only known her for half a day. She'd asked me to take her picture in front of the Sagrada Familia. Then we started talking and walking together, and suddenly, here we were, lost in Barcelona, having the time of our lives, drinks in our hands, sitting at a table on the sidewalk, the hot, balmy air clinging to us, the night full of music. I went to get us another drink. When I returned, she was gone. There was only the picture of us left on the empty table. She'd written something on the back. "Next year, same place, same time. XXX." One year later. June 15th, Warsaw. What the fuck is this? A pile of documents landed on my desk with a thud. I looked up and saw my boss's red, angry face. Clearly the presentation for the board hadn't gone well. "Did you hear me? What the fuck is this?" He almost spat on himself as he jabbed at the printouts of the presentation I'd prepared. "Calm down. There's no need to shout." I tried to defuse the situation, but it was a lost cause. "Don't you dare try to calm me down." With one violent swing, he sent the printouts flying across the room. The sales for last quarter were way below target, and the presentation showed it, on 2 slides. Didn't you think to gloss over that? I made a fool of myself. I started picking up the papers when I saw something under my desk. A slightly crumpled Polaroid with some text on it, in a particularly feminine handwriting. "Next year, same place, same time. XXX." How could I have forgotten? A swell of emotion rose inside me. I felt angry. Why was I even letting this buffoon shout at me? I was doing my job, but they definitely weren't paying me enough to take shit like this. I needed a break. I had 40 days of unused paid leave. Could you believe it? I stood up, turned off my computer, and walked toward the door. "Where do you think you're going?" my boss roared. "To Barcelona," I said, slamming the door behind me. Later, at home. "I'm going to Barcelona," I repeated, looking at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. "I can do this." It was already Friday afternoon. I had to be in the bar by Sunday night at the latest, and I was angry that I'd wasted so much time. I still had plenty to do. But first, I had to plan my route and decide whether to go by car, bus, or train. Flying might seem like the obvious choice, but I didn't really like being up in the air. If I had the whole of Europe to cross, I might as well enjoy the views. I also had to pack, book somewhere to stay in Barcelona, and generally prepare for the unexpected. I wasn't sure if I had everything I needed, but if I hurried with the planning, I'd still have time to go shopping. I checked my bank account and decided that I could spend about 500 euros on the whole trip. That should be enough to get to Barcelona, book a hotel, buy some food, see the city, and take her somewhere nice. I took out a map and started planning. Getting to Barcelona. I wanted to take a look at all the options before I decided. Should I go by car? I checked the map for the car route. The road to Barcelona was pretty straightforward, mostly highways. I took a closer look at the car route. There were lots of things to consider: price, travel time, comfort, accommodation. I checked the price of gas. I had to cover about 2,500 kilometers. Gas for a journey there and back would be around 300 euros. There were some turnpikes in France on my route. I decided to add 90 euros to the gas money to cover the toll. I figured that I'd have to fill up my car at least 4 times on the way. I made a note to take some music for the road. I decided to check the other options. I looked up the bus connection from Warsaw to Barcelona. The bus meant an easy journey, even if it was a bit boring. Should I go by train? I spent some time looking through the timetables and found a train connection to Barcelona. I checked the price of the train tickets. The best option looked like an Interrail ticket that covered all of the trains to Europe. I had to pay extra for the express from Warsaw to the Polish border, but the price was still only 103 euros. There were extra costs for some trains, including intercity or night trains. I'd have to buy the tickets as I went. I decided to put 50 euros aside, just in case. It was already 6. There wasn't much time left to go shopping today if I needed to. I bought the train tickets. Fitting everything into my huge suitcase shouldn't be a problem. I was ready to go. I closed my bag, satisfied, and ready for the journey. Into the morning sun. For years, I'd avoided Warsaw Central Station. It still existed in my memory as a confusing maze of underground passages full of secondhand bookstores, the sickly sweet mixture of sweat and not quite Chinese food, and suspicious-looking shops selling cheap, useless junk. That was all gone now, replaced by spiced lattes, chain restaurants, and electronic displays. I hurried to my platform, ready to begin the journey of my life. The train was already there, quietly waiting for passengers. As I was getting to my seat, I heard someone call my name. We could have booked seats in the same compartment. It was my friend Magna, embarrassingly loud as always. She was on her way to visit her family. "You could have told me you were going to Poznan," she complained. "To Poznan, then to Berlin, then to Paris, then to Barcelona," I explained. The more I said, the bigger her eyes got. "Wow," she exclaimed. "I know you're burned out and need a break, but this date in Barcelona, do you think it'll really happen?" That was a good question. For a whole year, I'd done everything to forget about that night, but when the time came, I just dropped everything, packed my bags, and here I was. What was I counting on? I couldn't answer the question. Logically, I knew it was madness, but I felt like I just had to go. I guess I'd figure it out as I went. So there I was, on my way to Barcelona, and there was no going back. In a day, I'd know how it would end. I wondered what surprises were waiting for me along the way. My plans were solid, but not bulletproof. I had high hopes, but little experience traveling. On top of it all, my long-awaited date was a whole other mystery. "Be safe and have fun." Magda patted me on the shoulder. The train shot out of the pitch-black tunnel into the morning sun. My journey had begun. The world outside. Familiar Warsaw suburbs disappeared in the distance. We passed an ugly gray town that was being soaked by rain. Kids waved at the passing train. I ignored them. Looking at people. Some kids were playing in the courtyard. I smiled at them. One of them stuck their tongue out at me. Their moms were ignoring the noise. A couple of kids were knocking on the compartment and making faces against the glass. Lost in thoughts. The kids seemed so excited. Was it their first train ride? Were they as bored as I was? What would people think if I started running up and down the corridor making faces? Should I? I looked around. I'd been lost in my thoughts too long. The world outside. The smell of manure was strong enough to reach the inside of the train. I heard the conductor approaching. "Tickets, please." There are passengers who are always ready for the conductor. They keep their tickets in the inside breast pocket of their jackets, or on the little folding table, or in their excitedly shaking hands. There are passengers who use as much of the conductor's time and energy as possible. They keep their tickets at the bottom of that small bag tucked deep beneath the heavy suitcase that they just put on the rack with the help of their fellow passengers. There are passengers who just reach inside their wallets and present their tickets. The boring ones. I was the boring one. The conductor didn't even look at me as she reached for the ticket. The picture on her name tag was a smile and charm, a younger, less jaded version of the woman standing in front of me. "Reservations for the train from Berlin are not included in your Interrail ticket," she said with grim satisfaction. "I know," I shrugged. Tired, she shuffled to the next compartment. My friends always told me that I worried too much, that I should be more spontaneous. But looking at my current situation, spending the extra time and energy planning would have paid off. That's exactly what I always told them. I smiled, satisfied. There are passengers who check what tickets they need before boarding a train. Views from the train. A bird of prey soared high in the sky. The enormous Jesus of Swissbosen loomed in the distance. On one side of the tracks, there was a green forest. On the other, a gray, industrial area. Headphones on. I listened to the music. I didn't even notice when we crossed the border. I had to turn the music off to hear the announcements. Berlin East. Berlin Ospinoff hid under a curved roof of steel and glass. The station seemed too big and unwieldy. Just like my suitcase, I mumbled, dragging the wretched thing out of the train. Why had I packed so many things? Unsure which track my train departed from, I focused on the displays and announcements. Unfamiliar German words like long, clattering trains were all I saw. I focused on trying to find something that would point me in the right direction. Lost in thought, straining my neck to find some kind of intelligible sign, I let my feet take over the whole walking business. I crashed into her at full speed, knocked her over, and sent her bags flying. She was about my age, dressed practically for travel. Long black hair, pale skin, Asian, Japanese maybe? Her huge backpack kept tripping her over as she tried to get up. "I'm so sorry. I didn't see you," she huffed. "No, it was my fault, really." I tried to explain myself. She didn't say anything, just cocked her head back and looked at me with deep brown eyes. And that was my problem in a nutshell, I thought. I was afraid of talking to strangers, even when they were so striking. Feeling unsure of myself and vulnerable, I turned around to pick up her bag. When she reached to take it from my hand, she winced in pain, and I noticed she was limping. No, don't worry." She saw the look in my face. "My ankle was already twisted. I tripped it this morning in the shower." "Where are you going?" I asked, caught somewhere between small talk and curiosity. "Warsaw," she answered, and then looked alarmed when she saw the nearest display. "Sorry, I have to hurry." She refastened her huge backpack and started limping towards the stairs. "Wait, I'll help you." I ran after her. We had to hobble down one flight of stairs and up another, but I took the bags and she grabbed the handrail. We eventually managed to find her train and get her on board. "Have a nice journey." She leaned out of the window, smiling. But I was already running to catch my train. I was still tired, and my muscles hurt from all the heavy lifting. It was no wonder that when I arrived, sweating and out of breath, my platform was already empty. This wasn't good, not good at all. My whole plan was falling apart. I just hoped there were other trains to Paris. I looked for a connection. Luckily, there was a train from Berlin Hauptbahnhof to Paris that left in an hour. I took the train. This time, I actually caught it. One catastrophe was enough for today.